this meeting to order, and we will start with the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Scott?
Here.
Nedrow?
Here.
Sinkowitz? Dumont?
Here.
Duff?
Here.
Stack?
Here.
Here. So I believe we've heard from Mr. Sinkowitz that he should be here around 7:30, so I don't think we need a motion to excuse him. Be here late. Correspondence, we have two items. Actually, before we get to correspondence, I do want to take one moment. Public service announcement. Some of you may have noticed we all have little bottles of Cutter before us. This comes to us as part of the West Nile Prevention Program. Bottles of Cutter are available up in the village office to residents, one per family, so you can stop by and get one. It'll help keep some mosquitoes off. And it's worth mentioning also that they did find West Nile in a trap in Oakland County this week. So West Nile is back and about, so if you have the chance, whether it's the one freebie bottle you get from us, or however you go about mosquito prevention, be it other repellents or screens or whatever, it's a good time to keep away from the mosquitoes if you can. So I did want to mention that. That's the PSA for tonight. Correspondence, we have a letter from Todd Lamb. We don't have Mr. Sinkowitz here. It does involve him. I think I'd like to just add it to the agenda at the end.
At
and then
the
we
end?
can- yeah,
I would
then we
like
can-
to do that. I'll make that motion.
So, motion Stack, second Duff, to add the letter from Todd Lamb to the agenda. And, well, we'll get to additions to business in a second. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And do I hear a motion to receive and file the letter from Barbara Watson?
So moved. Second.
Motion Nedrow, second Duff. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We just passed that. I do want to go back for one thing. Nah, that's fine. Okay, additions to business. So I'd like to add letter from Todd Lamb as L. We have a couple other items. So as M, I'd like to add Oak Island Park Planning for the neighborhood park on Oak Island. And as item N, sale of 1994 truck.
Mr. President, would it be possible to move Oak Island up a little bit? We have
Yeah,
the
I'd be-
board here, and I think we,
Let's put it, do we have anybody from Lakes Area Youth Assistance here tonight, other than you?
Other than me, no.
Okay. Well, then let's put it in as item C2.
C2, okay.
Yeah. And then that'll get folks who are here in and out quickly. And that would make the 1994 truck item M.
Okay.
So, Oak Island Park Planning, C2, letter from Todd Lamb, L, sale of 1994 truck, M. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with those additions?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Stack, second Duff. Further discussion? I think that was all we had, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this brings us to the first call of the public, an opportunity for citizens to address the council on any and all agenda items. Going once, going twice. Seeing nobody for first call of the public, I will close the first call. Considerably briefer first call than last month.
We did.
Understand.
That moves us on to approval of consent agenda. I would actually like to remove the minutes of the regular meeting, June 14th, for the tiniest of typographical errors. Do we have anything else from consent agenda, or do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of the regular meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Stack, second Scott. Further discussion of that motion? Roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Stack?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes. Motion carries. Approval of minutes for the regular meeting. And I really do mean the tiniest of typographical errors, but in my editorial heart, it was gonna haunt me. So on page 24, just a couple paragraphs up from the bottom, right above where it says motion, it says, what he likes about serving is to always be a counselor that listens to people and tries to get it right. That should be tries to get it right. So do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes with that change?
So
I'd like to make a comment if I could.
Okay, so let me get
I'll make the
that.
motion.
Yep.
Motion, Stack, second Scott, discussion.
Yeah, it's just under item 4, correspondence. Just wanted to make an open acknowledgement that the board, the Water Management Board, never did receive, and it would be my error to put on its agenda the discussion of the buoys with solar lights. So I'll make sure it gets on the next agenda.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, that one was gonna haunt me. All right, that brings us down to item, we have no public hearings today. Brings us down to item 12A, recommendations from Police Chief Ellsworth. Number 1, appointment of Steve Grunwald as a Marine Patrol Officer.
Council, as you know, Officer Grunwald comes to us as a reserve officer and has put in many hours over the last 3 or 4 months. I didn't add that up, but
Thanks, Ken.
Get on the air.
It's approaching 100 hours of volunteer time already. And he's ridden the bike in afternoons during the weekdays, and we appreciate that. He did take a liking to the Marine Patrol this weekend when or I guess it was last weekend when he worked with Officer Sutsko out there. Officer Sutsko let him take the wheel, and they started discussing his prior Marine experience. He grew up in Minnesota along the Mississippi and worked in a marina there with one of his best friends, and he's very experienced, and I think his demeanor and his experience will reflect well for the Marine Patrol. He showed a great interest, and I think it'd be a good benefit for the Village of Wolverine Lake for him to be appointed a Marine Patrol officer, and we obviously have a vacancy with Officer Shire having some family medical issues. He couldn't make his time, so I've been actually pulling guys off the road, and he's offered to step up into that role, and we appreciate it.
All right, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve Officer Grunwald as a Marine Patrol Officer.
Second. Motion Stack, second Dumont. Further discussion? Just to be clear, since you're going from reserve, this makes him an
Paid
actual
position.
official paid officer, paid position.
That's correct. It's still under the reserve program, but he would actually he would be getting paid as a Marine officer. Same way with, if you remember, Rick John,
Yep.
same principle in that. So he still plans on riding the bike. I still plan on putting him to good use, but he will, when he works in the Marine Patrol, he will be getting paid the Marine Patrol wages.
All right. Any further questions, discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations,
Aye.
Steve.
Great, Steve.
Uh,
Come on up, we'll get you sworn in.
Ahoy, welcome aboard.
Ahoy.
Ahoy. I think you're going to hear that again pretty soon.
Yeah.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
that I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of Marine Patrol Officer
the duties of the office of Marine Patrol Officer
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
and State of Michigan,
State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you.
In 1 second, I know John wants a picture of that. The way you were looking out to the audience.
I had my phone in my hand.
I know.
I didn't think it'd be very cool, so I thought it would wait.
The All-Star game last night, right?
Go ahead and yeah, we'll just. Perfect.
All right.
Just sign right here, Steve.
Oh, you can sign?
Make it official.
Type on your name, it's all right. Do you need to bring that up at the next meeting then?
No. That'll be an internal. Thank you. You're all set?
All right.
Hey,
Congrats. Saw you out there.
Yeah.
Matter of fact.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
no big deal.
But wait, that's not all.
That's
That's
right.
not all. Number two.
So we have the potential appointment, and actually, we can strike the word potential from that item. We would like to appoint Ken Person to be a part-time Wolverine Lake police officer.
As you know, we've been looking for a part-time police officer, and it's been a good search. We've interviewed several qualified candidates, and but we were especially struck by this one. Mr. Ken Persine comes to us through, he retired from Westland Police Department in, I believe, 2012, 13, and is itching to get back to work. We've performed all the necessary background investigations, psychological and medical exams, and I think he's going to be a very good fit for us. He actually passed everything, so I think we're good to go. I'd like to present Mr. Ken Persine. Come on up.
All right, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion Duff, second Dumont, to appoint Ken Persine as a part-time officer in Wolverine Lake. Further discussion? I'd just like to say, I saw the resume, I think it's a
Yeah.
really great experience. Very glad to have an experienced officer, and I think you're gonna be a real benefit. Thank you very much. With that, are we ready to proceed to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Simple as that. Welcome aboard.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of police officer
the duties of police officer
in and for the village of Wolverine Lake,
in for the village of Wolverine Lake,
county of Oakland,
county of Oakland,
and state of Michigan,
and state of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you. Sign right above your name there. It'll be official.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
All right, I think that takes care of item A. Item B, recommendations from Park and Rec. We have two appointees. I think I'd like to do this in one motion if we could. Could I get a motion to appoint Tammy Gennard Group to the Park and Rec Board with a term expiring on 12/31/18, and Julia Miller to Park and Rec with a term expiring on 12/31/17?
So moved. All right, support.
Motion Dumont, second Stack.
Friendly motion, can we extend Julie Miller till like 18, 19, 20?
No,
Going anywhere?
she's filling out
All
that one,
right.
but she'll come, look, we want to make her come back to us.
All right,
Um,
we'll give her a trial period.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
For 3 years.
Been that long?
So, any further discussion of that motion? Glad to see, after our discussion, we had a couple folks who wanted to come in and participate.
Very nice.
So, very welcome. All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Nathan, we're back to the swearing in.
You're getting your exercise today.
Yeah.
Actually.
Do Tammy for planning.
Yeah, I might as well stay up.
There we go, yeah.
Hey, John.
She's on
She can be sworn
planning
in for
also.
planning too.
I've got
Okay.
Yeah, Nathan's not even gonna come back here.
different titles.
Yeah.
Together?
Yeah.
Sure. We can do that, okay, all right. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of Park and Recreation Board Member.
the duties of the office of Parks and Rec
Board
Board
Member.
Member
In and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
and State of Michigan,
and State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you.
So Tammy, you're up here, and Julia, you're the next one then.
Above my name?
Yep.
It was stereo reverb. Pretty neat.
Sounded good.
Not bad for not rehearsing.
Yeah.
You have the longest title to repeat, Park and Recreation Board Member.
Right here?
Yeah, right above your name.
Okay.
Tammy, let's do this one more time.
Yep.
Thank you.
But first you gotta make the initial round.
Yeah, hey, thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
You're gonna go now?
Get it sworn in again.
Twice.
I'm back. Do it twice.
Well, we get to stand up twice, don't worry.
Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Thank you, yeah.
Yes.
We had a dog that used to love to do that. Yep.
All right, do I hear a motion to appoint Tammy Kennard Group to the Planning Commission with a term expiring 12/31/19?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Nedrow, second Duff. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tammy, congratulations, double duty.
All right, here we go. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of Planning Commission Member
the duties of Office of Planning Commission
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
and State of Michigan,
and State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
All right.
This one is actually right there.
Okay, one more time. Okay, one more.
Once more.
Thanks. Well, double duty. That's great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, brings us to item C2, Oak Island Park Planning. Mr. Scott.
Yes. Well, thank you, President. Thank you, Council. We have a newly elected board at the Oak Island Association that are currently out in the audience. And after attending the last association meeting, I think it's fair to say that Oak Islanders would like to see our village move ahead with plans, definitive plans, budgeted plans, to begin the improvements of the park. We're under the clear impression that the park is ready to do whatever we need to do. There's no more difficulties over in that legal department outside. And before we get into a little bit of the discussion, I guess I was wondering, Mike, can you make a comment as to budget? I went through the budgets. My memory serves me correctly. We had budgeted approximately $7,500 over a 2-year, or $7,500 per year, a total of $15,000 for our parks. And I was wondering if that's for our neighborhood park improvements.
Actually, John, we have a budget item, a line item for Park and Rec in the amount of $20,000.
$20,000, okay. Well, it's a nice number. We could probably go for that. But let's, I think the general thing I'd like to do is, again, open it up to maybe some comments from our new board. But what we're really looking to do, I think it's fair to say, is phase two. Phase two being to find a landscaping company, 1, 2, or 3, to come up with some design plans, unless council would like to go to Chris, our current planner, to get some ideas, some drawings. Bring that back through the Park and Rec Capital Committee so we can have discussions, so that members of the board can meet and express their views, and then go beyond that and really know that there are budgeted funds to move forward on some plan. I think the number that we discussed, I discussed, is up to $20,000, but I don't think we're in that ballpark at this point in time. I don't know if I know that Nathan's been doing some work with some landscape companies, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
In other areas, but.
Yeah, in other areas. So it's just a question of bringing a plan forward, a plan that can be somewhat put over the discussions that have been had, and a rough drawing that I did 2004 or something, but that's not the plan we're gonna follow. Certainly the board of Oak Island Association has some ideas, but at least get a designated parking area finalized. At least understand what we want to do to the back end of the park, whether it be stone extension or et cetera. And then with that at least outlined, then to have the landscaping company come in. So that's a simple approach here.
So John, it sounds to me like what we've really got here is 2 phases, one of which is sort of an exploration and planning phase.
Correct.
Have some meetings, maybe get a couple of proposals submitted, make some decisions around that, and then from there, develop a budget, come back and say, okay, here's what we want to do, here's how much it'll cost, and then we can have that discussion.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak entirely. I mean, it might be fair to open it up to any of the board members that have different ideas. I happened to come up off the island yesterday, and there was a meeting of these lovely ladies, and they told me I can keep going. They have their ideas.
So,
yeah, I know. Gabbing in the street.
Mr. Stiglitz?
Yeah, we have talked about this before, and I think that the residents there are more aware of what they need and how it should be done. But I think the idea of, which has been brought up before, and sometimes we don't choose to use this method, is get a couple contractors in. There's plenty of them around here. See what they would do, get their drawings, so now we don't have to spend the money on somebody putting together a drawing and a plan and redoing it and resubmitting it. Get it done one time, and then they supply the material. So, you know, they do that as part of their estimation and their cost, and I think it would be, that way we would have more money to spend physically into the park than on paperwork.
I'm open to that, and I think we've got, now that we've got the Amenia Park template to work with, I think it provides a good model for some of the things that you need to think about as you go through that. So, do I hear a motion to open it
So
to
moved.
members
Support.
of the Oak Island Association? Motion Sikowitz, second Stack, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So, anybody
Well,
want to come up, address us, talk to us?
Sure. So currently.
Oh, and come up to the mic, just so
Gotta get on
everybody can hear you.
television.
Gotta be on television.
Kara is our president.
Yeah, Kara's our president, by the
Kara
way.
Martini, 210 Oak Island. Currently, we have had a meeting on the island to gather, or at least start gathering information of desires for what we'd like the park to head towards. Parking being one of the items, trying to designate a spot, and then trying to bring back some of the natural beauty that we had to at least take some of the, I guess we can call road destruction back out of there and make it look more like a park that's usable and functional. So currently we're collecting that information, and then I think once we get all of those ideas put together, we can consolidate it, come up with what our top 4 or 5 items are that are our wants, and then I think we can start soliciting information from landscape architects or contractors that do both the services of the design and the construction itself, and then we can approach Parks and Recreation with the information.
All right. That sounds good. So I think what we probably would need out of council for now would be a motion to ask the Park Capital Improvement Committee to proceed to work with the Oak Island Association, put together an initial plan and budget, and that'll be looking at some of the options, perhaps going out, getting a couple plans, and then, come back to us with a recommendation for what you'd like to do.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Duff. Further discussion? Yes.
No,
Oh,
I was just
no, go ahead.
saying, let's go for it. It's been a while.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let me get a second motion actually to close to the Oak Island Association.
Support.
Motion Duff, second Stack to close. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Great.
thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Please proceed.
Very good.
We got slightly out of order. Probably didn't even need to do.
We won't hold it against you.
We got there. All right, cool. I'm really glad we're finally able to proceed with that. It's been, there are reasons it took so long, but.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad to see us moving forward with it. Okay, that brings us to item D, Lakes Area Youth Assistance Contract. Mr. Stack.
All right, well, I would love to support this contract, and we are adding some new programs this year. We're adding Michael D. Leon from Scared Straight, and it's drug prevention, it's dealing with the opiates, and it's dealing with a lot of our athletes that are getting addicted to opiates from injuries playing sports and then turning to heroin. So we've got that coming into the Walled Lake Consolidated School District this year. We also have another program coming in on retail fraud. We're getting a lot more kids that are stealing and getting caught for theft. So we have a program that we're working on right now to bring that in. So, and one thing I would like to say is we've been given $4,200 a year for a lot of years. We haven't increased that. So next year I would like us to increase that. Right now Onwards and Upwards is gonna pump some money into that. And we also have for the park on Oak Island, if they would like a butterfly garden, we'd be willing to do that, seeing that we're doing that in our parks right now. And it's a great program because then we harvest the monarchs, and for the kids to take home, they get a little egg or a caterpillar and get it watched to turn into the chrysalis and then into a butterfly and release it. So there's some cool stuff going on. In the program, we've helped a lot of kids this year. We've done a lot. We have the Taste of the Lakes coming up on September 12th. We're hoping this will be our biggest year ever because we are in front of this year. We have a lot of donations from a lot of companies. A lot of new people are coming on board to donate money. We're getting a lot more people for donation items, for the gift baskets and stuff like that. So I would like to make a motion that we accept the $4,200 contract with Lakes Area Youth Assistance.
Motion Stack. Do I hear a second?
second it.
Second Duff. Discussion. We've talked in years past about the specific numbers of children in Wolverine Lake and in our surrounding communities helped by Lakes Area Youth Assistance. The number is always amazing. I think it's 4,200 of the best dollars we spend in a year. So.
Oh, yeah. And it's not necessarily the kids that are helped in the village. The ones that are helped in the school district are the ones that our kids hang out with in the village.
The kids in the village are all going to the same school as
Yeah.
all those kids around us.
So that's a biggie.
All right, further discussion. Roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Stack?
Yes.
Magee?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Item E, discussion, once a month craft market at Clara Miller Park. Next, let me go to our administrator to give us an update on what he found, and then we
Yeah.
have to discuss with our attorney a little bit.
Yeah, this is a continued discussion from last month. You remember the idea was to hold an event the first Thursday of every month for a craft market. And council had asked me at the last meeting to check with our insurer to see if this caused any sort of insurance concerns. I did that. I described the event. I was told that we don't need to modify our policy, that that type of event would be perfectly appropriate, given our current insurance that we have in this, so that we were basically free to move forward from that perspective at least. Our attorney and I had some communication today about this. If it's okay, I'd like to let her maybe fill in some of the blanks on what we might need to do to get from here to there.
So if you'll recall, at the last meeting, my concerns were that the way your ordinance is written, well, there's different types of these peddling activities. What you would traditionally know as soliciting, you know, walking door to door, selling goods and services. Public use of the public park, like the food carts that you're allowing the special license for the food carts at your events, or private use of a public park. The way your peddling ordinance is written is that private use of the public park for things like this market would require them to go through this very cumbersome peddling license application. We looked at your peddling and soliciting ordinance, and as far as it applies to traditional peddling and soliciting, it's not really outdated. It would apply. I think you should stick with the application process for traditional peddlers and solicitors. What I would suggest is that you include an exception in that ordinance for things of this nature, for the private events in public park or public events in the public park. And then I would further suggest you look at some type of special events ordinance. And I've supplied a sample to Nathan that I didn't know if maybe you want your administrative committee to look at, but really it would require these vendors to go through a permitting process, but not nearly as cumbersome as the traditional soliciting application process. And in this instance, Nathan had talked to the MML folks, and they said, no, you don't need indemnification insurance for this particular event. What I would suggest is, if you are interested in exploring amending your ordinance to allow for an exception and then some type of special events policy, and it doesn't need to be super complicated, you know, just something that really tracks how your parks are being used, and not just Clara Miller, but all your public property. It could be your Oak Island Park, you know, it could be any one of the parks that you're looking at developing. It would be a way to track who's in the parks and what their use is and the hours, and regulate the type of activity going on, so that you have a method to enforce if you need to, because right now you don't.
Without
There
an
is nothing.
indemnification.
Well, and just
process.
without any, you don't have any regulations in
Okay.
place for this type of an event.
All
But with
right.
the indemnification, if you're gonna allow this, really your peddling soliciting ordinance wouldn't allow for this situation, this market,
Okay.
right now, as it is written. But if you're exploring a revision to it, you could possibly approve this market, you know, temporarily on the basis that you're
Premise that we're-
exploring a revision and a possible special events policy. And although your insurance carrier is saying you don't need insurance, I would suggest a simple hold harmless with this vendor, that, you know, one paragraph that says, okay, we're not liable. Because if you're gonna accept less information about the, I guess, sub-vendors that will be coming in, you don't know. You know, you don't, it's not like the peddlers and solicitors where there's 50 items on the application that need to be submitted. You're accepting less than, but it's in your park. So as far as the liability purposes, I would just suggest a hold harmless with the application. Did you distribute that application that you did for the food carts?
I sent it out electronically a few
Okay.
weeks ago.
Similar, I would suggest for this situation, something similar that Nathan created for the food carts, for the village events, where it's just, you know, what's the name of the business, how many people, you know, simple information like that. For this particular case, as a temporary resolution to allowing this event.
Jennifer, yeah, I agree with you 100% that we should have something documented, either a whole harmless agreement, and also, since they're delivering food, will they have to have some type of a health?
Yeah, Oakland
You know,
County
that the
Health.
people that are working in there, you know, who they are and what they
Yeah.
are.
Yes.
And, yeah,
And really, just the hold harmless I'm suggesting, and there will be some type of proof of insurance with the future vendors. If you're gonna have vendors in your public property, although you may not need to adjust your policy, you wanna make sure that they're covered for liability.
yes, that's another
Yeah.
point.
I mean, you never know, a display could fall down on somebody, or, you know, someone's blowing glass and lights the you know, audience on fire. You don't know. I mean, you want to make sure they have insurance.
I know that you're involved with Milford, but is this something that there's probably ordinances on the books that all we have to do is change some names? and a
I
few
actually
things?
took the Village of Milford special event ordinance,
yeah.
and, I mean, there was this
Yeah,
very,
I would
they have a
strongly
policy and a
suggest that-
huge ordinance, and I pared it down, and what I gave Nathan is,
Just
you
to,
know, a
just to
very
protect
quick.
ourselves and our community, that we should try to get some of this paperwork in order so we can have it when we start this at the end of the
Yeah,
month.
I think so too. So we had some discussion around this last month. Yeah, I think there was general consensus from council that we'd like to explore this, and we'd like to give this market a chance. So let me see if I can get this, capture this all in a single ordinance. So do I hear a motion to grant temporary permission for the, what are we calling it, the Sunshine Shopping Market, with the caveats that we're gonna want a hold harmless clause and an application created by the administrator for them to proceed, and to send the issue of peddling, soliciting, and special events to the administrative committee to bring back a proposed ordinance to deal with it.
And I'll support his motion.
Motion Dumont, second Sinkowitz, further discussion.
Just one quick question. Jennifer, you mentioned that the vendor needed to have the hold harmless, and the sub-vendors, maybe they don't? I wanted to clarify
Well, the way
that,
that
because you don't know if they're actually contractually related.
The way that we'll write the hold harmless and the permit for this event is that the vendor,
Mhm.
that she's responsible, it's her liability. So,
Okay.
you know, I mean, I would suggest that she make sure that her vendors are insured, or, you know, I don't know, but it's on her back.
So essentially, it's
On her
Rachel's
back,
event,
yeah.
but she can proceed.
Yes.
So, further discussion? I think, Rachel, that gives you what you need to just proceed.
I was just gonna say, I'll be in touch with you, and we'll work through some of what we just discussed for the first event.
All right. Let me get a roll call vote on that one.
Scott?
Yes.
Pedro?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Bath?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes. All right, thank you, council. I'm excited to see what we get here. Okay. We are at item F, appointment of alternate delegate to the SEMCOG, the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. I am our delegate. I have generally been a pretty reasonable delegate. The last couple of years, I've been a little less active in attending the general sessions. I'm happy to continue in that role. We definitely could use an alternate delegate who could either attend when I'm not. Welcome to attend all of them, just for general information. And if somebody really would prefer to be the main delegate, I would actually cede that, just because I've had troubles fitting it in my schedule lately. In general, there are three general sessions every year. They kind of go through things, but it's a during the day meeting, and it's pretty much an all-day meeting. It's also just, somebody to be a point of contact with SEMCOG to bring stuff back to the village, or if the village has an issue, to be a conduit. So, did I hear so alternate?
Yes.
Thank you, Dave.
Very good.
I'd like to make a
He's
motion
downtown
to appoint
anyway.
Dave.
Support. I hear a motion from Duff, second Stack, to appoint Dave Dumont as our alternate delegate to SEMCOG. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Thank you,
Opposed?
Dave.
Motion carries.
Thank you, David.
And you already know the way, because actually, the big meetings happen elsewhere, but Dave came down to the park training that they had a couple weeks ago, down at the SEMCOG office, which is really interesting. Okay, so that motion carries. I think that's all we've got on that one. Recommendation from admin. So we have a recommendation to
The joint meeting.
Oh,
Joint
sorry.
meeting.
Gee, determine date for joint meeting of village council, sorry. I'm not having my, you would think it's just a list, I just gotta go down the list. Item G, determine date for a joint meeting of the village council and park and rec board. So, what we'd like to do with this meeting is sit down with Park and Rec, talk about what some of the alternatives are for the park plan, get some good feedback so that we can bring a good plan back for a public hearing, and something that we think everybody can get on board with.
This is not for the public? I mean, public can be there, but.
Public can be there, of
Yeah.
course, but it's really to sit down and talk with us and talk with Park and Rec and talk about, now that we have a draft plan, what do we like in it? What do we want to change? What we got a lot of feedback in the last meeting, about the main item, but there's a lot in that plan, and I think what
Right.
we'd like to do is really kick around, okay, so here's what we like, here's what we don't like. Let's see if we can come back with something that, we really want to present to the public.
Right, and now that we don't have the August deadline for getting the seed on the ground
Yeah, there we go.
for the soccer fields, that allows us some time to work on this.
That is true. So we have a couple of alternatives in terms of scheduling this. We could aim for our July work session date, which would be in 2 weeks. That would be pretty short notice for folks. But that's one alternative. If we take a bit more time, we can get some revisions in the plan back before everybody, so that what we start with is something a little closer to what we want. So we can get the athletic fields back to where they were before.
Maybe September.
September might be good, so, here's the thing with my schedule, I'm gonna be out of town the 3rd and 4th weeks of August, which would be the August work session or the Park and Rec regular session. But if we wanna aim for September, our September work session,
That would be fine, but admin had made a motion to discuss charter amendments that night, which we could have multiple topics, maybe, or a special meeting, I guess it would be. But just that was planned for the September work session, but obviously that doesn't preclude
Okay.
us from doing more that night.
We could do both.
we could certainly do both, I think. Yeah, I don't think charter amendments are gonna take forever and ever.
You're
so.
looking at our September work.
It would be our September work session. So, it would, we'll have the summer to, the rest of the summer to get more input, look at what we have, see what we have. That'll make sure everybody's scheduled. I know that scheduling anybody from Park and Rec or council in the summertime is a little difficult, so.
And this way, with 2 new members to Parks and Rec, it'll give them time to voice their opinion also and do a little research.
That sounds fine to me.
Need a motion? I'll make that motion.
Motion Duff, second Stack, to schedule the joint session with Park and Rec on the Clara Miller master plan for September, thank you, September 27th, 7 PM. Any further discussion? One item I might mention is, if it looks like we are going to have a large turnout, I don't know that we will, I don't think we've got the same
Right.
specific issue, but people are passionate about this, and people wanna let us know. We may, have to consider finding a larger spot.
Venue.
I think we'll be able to judge that as we get a little closer.
All right.
Just out of curiosity, have you received separate feedback over the last month, Nate? Or,
It's-
I know the Park and Rec Board has, correct?
I've received maybe 1 or 2 comments
All right.
about the rest of the plan.
So it's probably gonna be a little bit quieter than we.
Yeah, it might, and it'll maybe give us a chance to come out with some communications around that and let folks know that this is the next step that we've scheduled, here's where we are. If you do have feedback on the plan, now that it's out there and you've seen it, bring it back to us. It's not the official plan yet, but, we're taking input wherever we get it. so.
You got it.
And real quick, to the administrator, has the hits on our website gone up since our last meeting?
Things have normalized back to where they were pre-June. I'm going to date everything pre-June 14th and post-June 14th.
Okay, so we had the spike and,
Yeah, our park planner told me that the website where the plan was listed had more hits than any other plan he'd ever worked on.
Gee, I wonder
all
why.
right.
So it was getting a lot of views, and what I'll ask him to do, is, since we're looking at September, is to just carve out the soccer fields and additional parking and maybe show us what's existing there to serve as the launching point for the
Okay.
discussion. we have time to do that now.
He's gonna go through this again and make another one?
Well, that would be a very minor modification. We're not talking about changing the whole plan, just the part that council last month voted to remove.
I guess we were somewhat successful in the sense that we were trying to bring the public in, and we certainly did.
Well,
Yes,
so,
we did.
so the point of developing
Sorry.
a master plan and having a master plan is to get input and make decisions.
Absolutely.
And though it's not exactly the way I would have chosen for that to happen,
Say
it,
what-
that's what that did, and that part was good, so. And I really am glad that people care a lot about the park.
Yes,
so,
Yes.
absolutely.
All right, so we have motion, we have second, we have discussion. Any further discussion?
I think the obvious mistake was that we didn't do more before that. That was the point that I made when we were talking over there, that was Todd Lamb brought back up. Not that, I was trying to make the point that we didn't spend $14,000 just to decide where and how we were gonna put in the soccer field. It's just that from all the park work that we've done so far, at this street, Oakview, and all the other stuff, we're doing it before we really had an idea of what we're gonna do, and we got his conception, which was like Disney World, and then when we went back to reality, we had to pay him to do it again, and then we have to pay him to get it back to order. And that was the point I was making, that in a couple of these situations, we got the cart in front of the horse. And obviously, you can understand why residents were, upset when they found out that there's a chance that they're gonna have soccer fields in their backyard.
I think the learning experience I'm gonna take from it is that we needed more and clearer communication about where we were
Absolutely.
in that process.
We had been working on it since November.
We had been working on it,
The
but.
residents saw that,
Yeah.
I even was shocked, we all were
Even
shocked.
before that. yes.
Right, and I think.
Amphitheater.
Yeah, I mean, look, it
over
was
with.
what it was, but, what we were trying to do is get those pieces out there as quickly as possible once they came into us. And I think it put them out there without the context of, okay, here's where we are in the process, this is a proposal, what does everybody think? And I think that's what created the vacuum that let people say, hey, this is a done deal, this is what they're planning to do, they're gonna do it right now, so.
We had to have our options.
And
We
and I
did.
think that's the learning experience we need to take pretty seriously from that, is be
Well,
really clear about the process.
We had also been studying what is the viability and logic of doing joint projects with outside organizations. It's not unusual. We know that Commerce does that. I mean, you're talking 18 ball fields that are sitting out there, and CW3 has 2 soccer fields, and now I understand a master plan for a third. So that $200,000 was at least worth looking at and deciding if it made some sense. And I think those, after going through all of the work that we did prior to that on Scarlett's Park,
Yep.
and watching, for good reason, that I understand and I'm not sure this is an accurate number, but there's somewhere near $750,000 in donations now to put that park in near the library. So
And-
we have to think larger that way.
And the truth is, for that organization, I think that's a better
It
location
is,
for it.
yeah,
for it
coming
anyways.
right out of the, yeah.
It is.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, that's all part of putting together a master plan, so.
Absolutely.
But just think if the council would have taken the approach that we didn't want the soccer fields, didn't put them in at all, you probably only would have had about 13 or 14 people here.
It wouldn't have been a failure. We wouldn't have had the kind of turnout we're looking at.
That's right, and we wouldn't have spent all that money, John. Boy, John,
We
good thing
didn't
you're
spend
sitting at the end of that table.
$14,000, though. I'm not sure where that budget number
Well,
comes from.
You start, all I'm saying, okay, maybe it's 12, but when you look at, let's forget it.
Ed,
It's
I
done.
wanted us to take a look at whether or not we
Yeah.
could accommodate everything. We couldn't, that's clear, so, I'll take responsibility for that, because I supported putting together a proposal that tried to accommodate soccer and baseball and everyone, and said, let's put it in there, let's get as much in there and see what we can do, and then we can prioritize, and we can figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Absolutely.
And I think that is where the communications ran off the road.
And the additional parking and the access onto Brisbane got thrown in there. We saw it the day or two before the public saw that.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, so that changed a lot of the discussion.
and we knew that was gonna be part of it, we wanted to look at it.
Yeah.
There were things that we would do differently if we had to do it again, and you know what? We do.
Right.
And it's a good organization, CW3. It's not like we were dealing with somebody.
There's
that
no,
isn't-
there's no doubt that
Yeah.
what they do for the youth and athletics
Sure.
in this community is fantastic. There's no question there. It's just, that's something that doesn't, well, it's over and done with.
Yeah, it's over and done with.
Yeah.
Yep. So, back to the motion that we have before us. Joint session with Park and Rec, fourth Wednesday of September. We'll talk about it, we'll get more input, and we'll figure out what in that draft plan we want to proceed with and what we want to bring back to the public. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Okay, so that was G. Now we come to H, recommendation from admin committee. Actually, Nathan, let me ask you to introduce this.
Yeah, this is a road ending issue. Council last year in the fall had voted on a series of actions for the different encroachments that exist on the road endings. We had some items that we asked to be removed. We offered easements to some property owners, licenses to some property owners. Property owners are now in the process of complying with those requests, and I had a request from the resident at 760 Wolverine Drive. I put the survey in your packet. They have a trampoline that is built into the ground 5.5 feet into the road ending, and their estimate to have that removed was very, very, very expensive. They said it was going to cost them about $5,000 to have that undone and dug up. And so what they wanted to request from council was whether or not we could grant a license for that item instead of requiring removal.
And just to be clear about that cost, that in-ground trampoline has drainage and things underneath it, and there are complications beyond it's just a hole in the ground.
And if you look at the survey, this is, I would say, the most difficult road ending. There are a lot of encroachments, and some of them are permanent things, like portions of the home are built over the road ending. So there was obviously some mix-up when the house was built, when the building permits were approved as to where the proper property line was. These property owners have been very willing to comply with the other requests. They've already removed the play structure that was just above the trampoline. So they've been very good to work with, and the administrative committee thought this was a reasonable request to grant them a license that would allow it to stay as long as they own the property, as long as they can provide us proof of adequate insurance on the home. So that was the admin recommendation, would be to grant a license to this. If council approves of that, I will work with them and with our attorney to make sure it gets done correctly.
And
I had
didn't we
mentioned
also,
to Nathan that, it's been there so long that, as long as it's maintained, my only concern would be about, it's on village property, and what kind of liability are we for? I mean, what kid wouldn't want to go by and jump on it?
So I think we had a little bit of discussion before that with the attorney. Jennifer, you want to address that?
That we could put some additional, we already have language in the licenses that we've been using that require the indemnification and the liability insurance. But we could beef up that language a little bit because this is a high-risk use.
and didn't we include in the event of repair that they couldn't do it, they had to move it?
Yep, that's usually in the
Yes.
licenses.
Well, that would be like not replacing the springs of the net, but I mean, if the structure.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Genuine large scale.
Yeah.
So do I hear a motion to grant
So
the
moved.
license on the trampoline? Motion
Second.
Stack, second Scott. Further discussion?
Just had two quick questions. The liability on that, will the license pull the liability under their homeowner's insurance? Is that what goes on?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I see it says sprinkler box down here. Did they install a sprinkler system in this plat?
I believe there is a sprinkler box that's encroaching in the road ending, so what we required is that they had them inspected,
Okay.
possibly relocated on some of them. I don't know if this was one that.
I believe this was one where they were going to grant a license. It encroaches, this is actually about the most modest encroachment. I
Yeah.
don't, I
Yeah.
can't even make out I don't know if it's more than a foot under the line, but these boxes are actually fairly common along the properties that we've been looking at, so.
Yeah, there was a number of them.
They sure cram a lot in a 40-foot lot, don't they?
Yeah.
Yep. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, second call to the public, opportunity for citizens to address the council regarding any and all items. Yes, sir.
My name's Greg
Oh,
Zerber,
get you.
504 Penny Lake. I discussed with Nathan this afternoon about having the Nantucket's Homeowners Association come forward and next month discuss our problem with Penny Lake Drive. Okay? I'm only going to take 2 seconds. We have up to 85 cars an hour running down that road on a regular basis. The police officers cannot spend all day there. We have to come up with a resolution, some way of taking care of this problem before our children get run over or one of us adults gets shot. Because we're screaming at people all day long, and the officers have been trying to control that. They've been doing a good job trying to be in there as much as they can, but we can't go on like this. I've been here for 35 years. I've seen a stop sign removed. I've seen a barricade removed on Dunreath Road, and people are coming from everywhere and anywhere to not go on into Wall Lake to get away from traffic. We have to come together as a group and resolve this down the road before something really happens out there. And I'm not talking just during the day, I'm talking at night. I talked to a guy on an ice cream truck that drives around with his ice cream truck. This is no lie. He stopped to give the child some ice cream across the street from me. I was walking down my driveway. The car stopped behind him. The next car pulled out around the ice cream truck to pass him. That's how bad this has gotten in there. So we're going to present to you next month, like I told Nathan. We already talked today. We're going to come as a group. There's going to be we had 40 people last night at one house. So it's going to be a bunch of people coming up. Just wanted to let you know we need to do something with this. And we need it before the kids go back to school. Because it even gets worse when the kids go back to school because more parents are running through that road to get their kids back and forth to school and around school buses. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know Nathan had let me know, and I think what we'll do is have our chief conduct some traffic studies down there. We'll get it on next month's agenda, and we'll talk about it then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, but a month is a long time. You're talking about the children out there, and
Well, tell you what, we're writing call to public, so let's get name and address and.
You go up to the microphone right there, that way.
My name's John McDonald. I live at 1155 Glengarry. A month, that's a long time. I mean, I'm sure we can speed this up a little bit and get this group's matter taken care of a little quicker versus then coming next month and presenting you people something. I'm sorry, but when it comes to the kids, waiting a month isn't acceptable. You know, it's, like I said, I've seen the problems down Glengarry. Motorcycles, cars, I mean, it's ridiculous. But as far as this goes, I think, you know, as a group up here, there's plenty of you could at least do something a little quicker for this group.
All right. Well, let's get call to the public through, and then we'll talk about it some more. Thank you. Anybody else call to the public?
Mike Dorsey, 2425 Brisbane. I just have a comment on the Clara Miller Park thing. There's a part of that plan showed a BMX course or thoughts of having something like that in there. There's a lot of talk in the neighborhood that the same thing's going to happen with that idea that happened with the soccer fields. I think one of the things that at this meeting between the Parks and Rec and the council, it's a community park, and what is put in there should be things that benefit the immediate community. Anytime you start adding things that are drawing in people from the outside, I think you get into the destroying of the park instead of improving it. Because if you do the BMX thing, there's going to have to be paving in there and parking lots and so on and so forth. I did a little bit of research, and there is a BMX course at the Waterford Oaks Park. Waterford Oaks is an Oakland County park, so it's much larger. That's set in, it's buried back in a 185-acre park. To try and bring that BMX in there where it looked like to us was going to be put just seems like a real bad idea. And I think that, there's a lot of improvements that need to be done in the park. There's no two ways about it. But I think one of the things that should be at the top of the list is to keep any of the structures that you do or whatever away from existing residences. Keep them out into the park as opposed to, there's a fellow that lives on Brisbane, this is going to be right next to his house. I just don't think that's a very good idea, and drawing that many outside people into the community park.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with regard to that particular item, the discussions I've heard were really not about like setting up a large-scale BMX course and event thing. It was really more making some small improvements in where the kids already ride their dirt bikes there. So it's something we can definitely bring back to park.
Wasn't there an area that was already existing that was sort of used?
It's an area, an already existing area that kids have been using that way.
As
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The Big Hill, as my daughter and her friends used to call it.
Right.
Right,
It's
just
still
the
there,
Big
and
Hill.
they still
Yeah.
use that.
Yeah.
That we were under the impression that whole area was going to be turned into a, course.
Yeah, and I don't think
My
that's.
impression
what
was it was gonna be
The one neighbor
scooping
said,
some
well,
dirt and
instead
piling some
of
dirt.
adding more hills, just teach the kids how to turn their bike and ride over it again the other way. We can solve that problem, so. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else in call to the public? All right. Seeing none, let me close the call to the public. Let me ask the chief to address traffic in Penny Lake and Dunreath area. I know we've talked about it a few times this summer.
We have, and we've actually done traffic studies. A few years ago, the federal government came in, they laid down the law. We had to change our signs, and make them compliant now with our aging society. We had to increase the size of our size and reflectivity of the signs. And so, as you know, we've had to change all the stop signs. And during that, they also said, you cannot have signs that you can't have stop signs that regulate speed. You cannot have signs that, children at play signs are not allowed unless there's a special needs child and there is a special study done. There are many things that they said we no longer could have. Well, now, for years, we didn't remove them as fast as we should have probably, but the deadline was July of 2012, and then that was extended for a year, and we left most of those signs in place. When we did finally meet with the traffic engineer, we had to remove 72 stop signs around the village. A lot of four-way stop signs they felt were unnecessary when the major traffic was off one road. There was no reason to have a four-way. And those were where people were used to stopping. They didn't involve a bicycle path or anything of that nature. It was specifically designed or installed to reduce the speed through those subdivisions. One of those was down at Sunset and down near your place. And those stop signs, we were forced to take them out by the traffic engineer. I have since performed a traffic study, and yes, there has been increased traffic, absolutely. With increased traffic comes increased speeds. However, that being said, 2 years ago, I did this traffic study, and it did not meet the criteria that the federal government would require for us to reinstall those stop signs. We can't reinstall the stop signs. They said stricter enforcement. Now, I have statistics, and I could probably break them down particularly, and we're down there, we're down there constantly, My officer was there within the last 2 hours. I heard him as I was coming in, call out a traffic stop at Penny Lake and Adrian. So I know they're down there. And as far as the road being blocked off, that was never the intention with Dunreath. It was, and I think Jeff could probably back me up, when they developed that subdivision, when Dunreath, and that was probably closer to 40 years ago when they pulled that.
It was probably opened up in the mid-70s.
Okay. So.
Or it was through traffic.
Correct.
I'm not sure why they did it. I mean, I can
Yeah.
speculate.
Well.
I mean, because of that particular reason.
Because of the development there of Penny Lake subdivision, and they wanted to be able to go out either way. They didn't want them to be bottled up in one particular outlet, which would have been Wolverine Drive. So I do understand that a lot of people use that for through traffic. I don't know, and I've talked to Kathy numerous times on that, and she calls on a regular basis, and I can appreciate the calls. But you're right, we can't be there constantly. We can't be the Penny Lake Police, we're the Wolverine Lake Police, but we've done as much as we can do. And I don't know that there's a simple solution to this. And I agree, you know, we can't address this overnight. This is nothing we can say, we're going to reinstall those barricades. We can't do that. The federal government, the state government, the local traffic association has to be involved. In government, it takes forever to get anything done.
So we have to work within the regulations.
We have to work
or
within the
roads.
regulations in order to install signs.
Right,
Correct.
and if we don't work within those regulations, we lose all of our road funding.
Correct, and and which does us no good. So,
As a general question, so our former traffic engineer unfortunately passed away.
Yes.
I don't think we've got a current traffic engineer, and I know there've been a couple discussions about bringing somebody in. Is this something that council would like to see us advance so that we can get a new traffic engineer?
if I can make a quick suggestion, I've met a couple of times and actually went over this problem and he came out and I drove him through the subdivision and said, we need to be addressing this. And it's Traffic Improvement Association, which is TIA, and they are out of, I believe, Troy or somewhere along. Everybody in the neighborhood or every community locally uses them for their traffic engineering. I think we got a quote. Did we get a quote? We never did get a quote.
We had a good meeting with them. I have not received a quote. As soon as I get one, I'll have them on the next available agenda.
And I would suggest that, and I do know that it was going to be, Mike, do you recall, was it around $1,500 or $2,500 when we?
used to spend.
It was about it. If it pleases the council, I would like to suggest maybe possibly allowing the administrator to enter into an agreement not to exceed $2,500 with the TIA, and I will hunt him down and make sure we get this week so we can get moving on this. I want to see something done too, but we've talked about doing this, and this is one of those things that, you know, we kind of.
We can't freelance it, but there may be alternatives that we aren't.
And we would love to be able to bring somebody in to be able to do this and address it, and maybe by next council meeting, we can have a solution, or at least a temporary solution.
So I would entertain a motion from council to approve up to $2,500 to enter into a contract with TIA as our traffic engineer.
So moved.
So, motion Duff, second Sinkowitz. Further discussion on that motion?
And we should be able to have something for our next council meeting.
With any luck.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Well, that's what we shoot for.
Yeah, that's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing particular to this summer is just talking to a few folks down there and being down there and walking down there. I live on the south side of the village too, so I'm familiar with the traffic. It seemed like it really took a step up when M5 got closed down. That's when
Oh, my gosh.
that's when things really got bad. And I was a little bit optimistic that once they opened that back up, things would return to at least where they were before. But I don't know if it's people have gotten into new
No,
habits.
they found
or
shortcuts.
They found shortcuts, but yeah, it's been consistently bad ever since the M5 closing. So I'd
You
like
know,
to see.
since we're on the road thing, now that Oakview is like a pool table, as narrow as it is when you come down that turn, you know, I guess you can't put 15 miles an hour, but 25 miles an hour, especially because one is coming down and the other one is coming up, and everybody crowds, and it's so close to having a head-on, and then there's always somebody that parks in the street. It'd be nice if we could get that to be a 15, but I don't know if you can do 15.
I don't think we could make it a 15 zone,
No.
but you might be able to put a caution slow turn or something. But again, this is an area where the law really has changed a bit over the years. So that's why we really need a traffic engineer who really knows the rules. Yes.
I'd like to thank the board and the chief for addressing this and getting it started. I will let the people know, and the people will be here next month, so that hopefully we can calm this down a little bit. It's getting pretty ugly.
Yeah, no, I
But,
agree.
You know, I know you have bounds that you have to work through, but we have to live on that street too. And when you're seeing 80-plus cars an hour, you know, and you're right, M5, that got really ugly, we just knew it would be, but
Mhm.
it's not going away. I stopped a male lady today, and I asked her for her name. I says, you come through here every day from between 1:30 and 2:30. This is not a thoroughfare. Where do you deliver? Oh, I deliver on Wixom. You know, okay, fine, that's all I wanted to know. You know, so that, even the male people are using it as a thoroughfare.
Yeah,
Well,
but-
if I can address that, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, it depends on which way you look at it, it is a thoroughfare. It is a public road.
Yes, it is.
And we cannot limit people from using a public road, even when they cut through. We can't say, you can't cut through there because it is a public road. Now, we can keep them from cutting through Dairy Twist, because that's a private road, they use that to avoid a traffic light. We can't keep them from cutting through Apple Orchard, and they do that too, and they do that quite often. But because it's a public road, everybody's allowed to use it. And just because we don't like it, doesn't mean we can stop it. And that, I want to caution you, when you say it's not a thoroughfare, it is. But what we want to do is see if we can create an easier route for them that doesn't go through your subdivision. And I've been looking for solutions for this for a while, and hopefully our traffic engineer will be able to come up with one. Okay?
Thank you very much.
There may be some things that could be done short of the one thing that I think is possible, but is very difficult and creates a lot of other problems, is, you know, potentially you could shut off Dunreath from Penny Lake. That also creates a lot of problems for people who live down there too, so. it's not-
emergency service.
And emergency services, so then you end up having to shut it off, but in a way that lets emergency services through. It's a difficult situation.
Well, just want to look at it, that's all. And,
Yep.
See what we can do.
Yep,
I don't
and
see
I think we're right on board with that.
people, and that's,
We don't want to see that either. We want to make it a welcoming community, and that's, we will address it.
Thank you.
Well, welcoming, but not necessarily welcoming to people who are cutting through as much. Okay, we do have motion on the floor. We're still in discussion. Any further discussion? Let me get a roll call vote on that.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Stack?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes. All right, so
Thank you.
we'll address it and we'll figure out what we can do. All right. Brings us to recommendations from Engineer Powell. Future sanitary sewer on South Commerce north of Payne Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. An issue came up within the village here over the last month and a half, and that is on South Commerce Road, just north of Payne Court, a resident's septic system failed. And as council may know, a number of years ago, Commerce Township installed a sanitary sewer main all the way from Wolverine Drive down South Commerce Road, just north of Glengarry Road, in which serves all the southern part of the village and everything along that direction. As part of that, the installation of that sanitary sewer, as a cost savings technique, from Payne Court north to Glengarry Road, instead of following the lay of the land, coming up to the hill and then back down Glengarry Court, down to Glengarry Road, it was decided, and it's fairly easy to do when you directionally drill, they went right through the hill. So they went straight from the elevation in Payne Court through to Glengarry and up to the pump station north of Glengarry. That being said, if I can, and I passed out a drawing to you. Hopefully this will go far enough. Well, I can reach here. All right, let's do it this way.
We have the mobile one.
Yeah.
It's the year 2017. We have a mobile.
There we go. Here is Payne Court, and Glengarry is down over in here. The land rises up north of Payne Court and then slowly drops down to Glengarry Road here to the north. What the sanitary sewer did is from Payne Court, it dropped down below this, went relatively flat to get to Glengarry Road, and so it is 18 to 20 feet below the elevation of the ground as you head north on South Commerce Road. Unfortunately, this home right here is the home that has the septic system that has failed. And they do have water down here, so they're on the lake.
Which home right there?
It's 2529. So it's the home due just north of the Beechcrest Apartments. Their septic system is lakeside, and obviously anytime we can get a lakeside septic system removed from the environment, we would like to do that. We sent the contractor out, and we did the plans to be able to have the contractor come out and tie this home into this sanitary sewer out here on our side of the road, of South Commerce Road, and he determined that he really couldn't do that. He'd have to dig down 18 feet, he'd take out half of South Commerce Road and take out a big portion of ground. And going back through our notes during the installation and the design of the sanitary sewer, I did find notes that I did expect to have to put a sanitary sewer in to pick up these apartment buildings and come all the way back to the manhole here on Payne Court. It will be a low-pressure sewer, but that was going to be a special assessment district when, in fact, these people all came together and wanted to do a sanitary sewer. Unfortunately, this homeowner now has a major problem in that he has a failed septic system. He could, in fact, because technically speaking, this sanitary sewer is unavailable to them. They can't actually access it. So he could, in fact, put a new engineered septic system lakeside. It would cost him in the range of $25,000, $30,000 to do that, and then we'd still have a septic system lakeside in the village. When it's all of our desire to have these homes, instead of rebuild engineered septics, to tie into this sanitary sewer. So I had a good meeting with Nathan. We came up with a method to allow this homeowner just to, on an emergency type condition, run his connection out to South Commerce Road and actually install a lead. And I can get into the technical aspects of that, so if you want, run the lead down and tie it into this 2-inch in Payne Court. That gets us out from underneath a major problem right now, solves his problem, and we eliminate a septic field on the lakeside. This then prompts the discussion. It would be at least my recommendation that this might be a good time for us to design this sewer, or at least design it enough, and you can see I've actually almost done that, design it enough to where I can develop what the cost might be to install that sanitary sewer. Then council would have two decisions. We could initiate discussions with the homeowners. We could actually call for an informational meeting, and we've done this on every SAD that we've done. I've gone in, the administrator's gone in, and we've had meetings with the association and all the people. We've invited them in here, and we've discussed why it should be done, how it could be done, what the cost would be total, what the cost would be per person, and see if there would be an interest in establishing a special assessment district to put that sanitary sewer in. So if in fact anybody else, their septic system failed, we would have a sanitary sewer for them to connect into. If there wasn't the interest then of the homeowners to join a special assessment district, there are still there are three options. One, do nothing, and then everyone would have to put a septic system in to tie in or to solve their problem. The other alternative would be for the village council to initiate the special assessment district, and that has political ramifications certainly, because you're telling people that you're going to charge them for that sanitary going in. The last alternative would be to use the water and sewer fund, and Mike and I would work carefully to decide how that might happen, to have council put that in, and then everyone that must tie in has to pay that much higher tap fee. There is a lateral benefit charge for those that didn't assist in putting a sanitary sewer in, so it's a way to recoup the costs of that. That being said, this failure is what prompted this discussion, and we just wanted to find out whether council wanted to direct maybe Nathan and I to initiate a discussion with those property owners and bring it back before you sometime when we could.
So, just as a quick summary, though, it has been our intention to circle the lake with sewers to make them available. There's a sewer line there, but it's just where it is, too deep to reach. So there, as a practical matter, there isn't a sewer line there that's accessible to the homeowners in that area.
That is correct.
So instead of them tying into the force main, we would have to put in the directionally board.
That's correct. It would be another small directionally bored force main that sits above the bigger one. The one that's right now there is a 10-inch. We do this with a 2-inch, much like what we've done in the neighborhoods surrounding the lake currently.
Are there going to be properties that'll be able to tie into the force main cheaper than the directionally bored?
No,
since
no one really
right
can.
now, there is no assessment on the force main
There
coming
is,
down there.
there is no assessment at all.
Right, okay.
That is correct.
All right.
Right, so they were charged for that one that they can't access. It's
That's
just-
correct.
That happens to be there, it's just not a useful for them. It's a main, it's a large main that's underneath, that's too deep, and it's
Yeah.
not.
That is
not a
correct.
neighborhood main that they can tie into.
From the homeowner standpoint, Mike, is the cost of wash, I mean, the 25 to 30,000 for the engineered field as compared to, do we need to do assistance in the short run? I mean, the short run of 2-inch or 4-inch pipe to get
It's
him in?
really, I just gotta say, it's less expensive probably to have the sewer put in and connect into it. The cost is typically in the $15,000 to $18,000 range to connect into the sanitary sewer, and then typically it's $3,000, the individual property cost to be able to put that main in. So it's still lesser cost, I believe, and all of that would come out if we had the informational meetings. I'd have all that laid out. But the overwhelming concern is more, what's the right thing to do, I think.
Mike, if you put that new 2-inch lateral line to service, what is it, it's about 6 homes? 8 homes?
Actually, it's these 6 homes, but then these condominiums as well.
Okay.
There are 4-plex condominiums there.
All right. That, obviously, you're only vertically drilling or horizontally drilling a lot less below the ground, so that would be cheaper than trying to tap into the deeper one, right?
Oh, Lord, yes,
Because it's so deep.
yes.
So if there was one of these, that plan would be the most economical and yet beneficial to the residents?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Without
you.
a doubt.
So having done this, what's your sense? What direction, I mean, obviously, one would think we'd want to do something to help all of the residents and get as much of
I
future
think-
potential failures off.
Yeah, personally, I think it's wise to at least do enough analysis to make a presentation and get input from the people, from the residents. Otherwise, they might say, you know what, absolutely, let's go for it. And this is a fairly opportune time, and Mike be able to speak to this better than myself, but we are looking to establish a special assessment district for the connection SAD. We have 25, 30 people, or 20 people that are interested in connecting, and this all might be able to be wrapped together, and the same bond costs and everything else might be done.
So that might be a a good cost savings that would be available if they want to proceed with an SAD at this point. If not, there are alternatives. I think the big item here is there are a lot of apartments and condos in this area, and it's really gonna be,
Beneficial.
beneficial to those apartment and condo owners in the long run. The question is whether or not they're on board with that.
And you have to remember too, we put a lot of sewer lines in where there are only maybe half the people on the street hooked up, but everybody paid for it.
Oh, sure.
So one way or another, whether, if it's in there and the people don't use it, my septic system's fine, all right, but because of this situation and where you are, that if and when it happens, we're gonna go to the sewer system. And it's just, it's.
Yeah,
And I would think for some of those homes in there that have been around there as long as they have, is that, that
Those
this is
septics
the
are
first- this is the
getting
first.
elderly, yeah. I think it's likely to be more cost effective for them in the long run if they want to create their own SAD, go through the bonding process, do it that way. It's certainly an alternative we could do where the village puts that in and then they get the extra lateral charge. But I think they would end up with a
Yeah.
better deal if they create their own
Yeah,
SAD.
and if we put the numbers together and bring them and show them what we have and let them make their own decision.
The only way that would work probably would be to have the apartments included in that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
It would benefit them, it would be in front of them, so.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without them. We
Yeah.
wouldn't have enough money to service 6 homes in the condos for the bond.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody that goes by is a beneficiary of it.
Right.
So it sounds to me like we have consensus to have the engineer and the administrator, open up the discussion with the homeowners in the area. Let's get a sense of what works for them. With regard specifically to 25-29, do we have a reasonable solution for them in the short term?
We do. We are, and it's going to be actually less costly for them, instead of tying into the big main below,
Gonna get
to
a
run their
directional
line all the way
flow down.
down to where this sewer line might eventually tie into the Payne Court.
It's essentially as if you had your own long directional.
Exactly, right.
Okay, so let me get that in the form of a motion. Do I hear a motion to request the administrator and the engineer to enter into conversations with the homeowners in the South Commerce area discussed as to whether, about a sewer extension? So motion Duff, second Stack. Further discussion?
Just a point of information. Does my memory serve me correct or incorrectly that at one point in time, there was septic work done at one or two of those apartment buildings?
The apartment building on the north side of Payne Court had just put a new septic system in when we put the sewer in, and so
That's
they were
what it was.
unwilling to participate in that extension.
Okay. Still worthy of a conversation with them, though.
Correct. And keep in mind that if a special assessment district were to be established, and let's just say that 75% of the people signed the petition, they could be forced to join the SAD because they would be the 49% that could be forced along.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 2. Fuel meeting and the pump house.
All right, first of all, I want to bring council up to date. Thus far, certainly, the park, Amelia Park has been completed, the paving, the pump house, the Penny Lake Pump House has been completed. Is this phone, is this on?
That one needs to be on for that one to work.
Oh, interesting, thank you.
Thank you.
So much for modern technology. All right.
Our engineer has yet to master the on
That's
switch,
correct.
is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right. They don't let me touch computers very often. So those projects have been completed. Oakview has been completed. And then the Wanda Street has been completed, and they are currently working on our major street, which is Laguna and Laguna Court. The contractors I'm very pleased with. They're doing a very personal, as though it was their roadways they're doing. They've been very congenial and helpful to the residents. Most residents have been very, very patient with us. There have been a few that wonder why they can't drive through 300-degree asphalt, but we've prevented that. So that being said, we've had a number of rainstorms, and I've toured it even today and watched the water go right where I wanted it to, and so I've been very pleased with that. This particular pay request, and I divided into two pay requests because of the village's fiscal year. This first pay request then is for Oakview, Amenia Park, and the pump house. This was budgeted in the 2016 and 2017 budget year, and so I am recommending that council authorize the payment of $79,630, which is the amount less the 10% that I typically hold until the project's done and everything's been completed. I do want to point out to council that in paving of Oakview, when we took up all that asphalt and ground it all up, we found that there were sections of that road that didn't have an aggregate base underneath it. And we were very concerned that it was creating weak spots, and it was in areas where the asphalt pavement had really deteriorated terribly. Normally what we do is we dig all that sand out and put an aggregate base down, and that would have required the contractor to do excavating and then bringing in crushed stone, compact it all, shape it all, and then paving over that. After discussing with the contractor, we found that it was a major savings by us increasing the thickness of the pavement itself in those areas instead of going through a totally separate operation. So we are over budget slightly on it, but I believe that the entire project will still come in very close, if not just maybe a little above the budget, and that'll shake out when I finish the shoulder work and things like that. But I wanted to let council know that there was an overage on Oakview in order to pave it properly. So that being said, I look for the council's desire on this.
Mr. President, since I live on Oakview, I would like to make a motion to pay ASI for the completed work on Oakview, Armenia, and the pump house. And is that the figure there, 75,000?
75,395.
I'm sorry, you're correct. I apologize. $75,395.
I thought you said something different.
I did. I read a different section of my letter. I
As
apologize.
presented.
As presented.
There you go.
So motion
Support.
Sinkowitz, second Stack. Further discussion. Mr. Sinkowitz, it sounds like you are pleased with the paving.
Yeah, and we did, the three of us, the contractor and ourselves all discussed it, that's a normal procedure, especially it was on the turn where the garbage trucks and the buses make, and also that old culvert was put in there, so another inch or two of asphalt was not only expedient, but will be just as successful.
All right. Any further discussion?
I have just one other thing on that, and just a kudos to DTE. Our planner for this area from DTE is a Bud Woodby, and he stepped in and really pushed to have the power pole at the corner of Marshar and Oakview relocated. That would allowed us to increase the radiuses there, and trucks should be able to turn that intersection much easier now. So.
Roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
Demott?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Stack?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes. All right.
Thank you, council.
Item 3, ASI Alberton and Wanda.
Okay, now, as council knows, this work was done and invoiced for the next fiscal year, the one we're in now, so it's the 17-18 fiscal year. And they have completed Alberton and certainly Wanda. And they're, as I said, they're into Laguna now, but I didn't want to necessarily hold off on paying them for work that's already been completed until they finish Laguna as well. These particular projects, we had some interesting modifications that had to be done in order to solve some drainage problems. We worked extensively with the DPW down at the intersection of Shankin and Wanda. The southeast corner there would turn into a lake after major storms, and I know we never get a lot of rain here in the village, but and I was out in it today, so I can counter that. And so we changed the grades of the roads and shifted the drainage down to where we have catch basins already installed. We did extensive work, and working with the DPW, if you've been down there, you see we actually went out into Shankin, about 75 feet to the north and more like 100 feet to the south in order to take care of that drainage problem there. So we are over budget a little bit. We added some more material and some labor into that, but I totally solved that problem. I was out there, and it drains beautifully in that area, and we still have some shoulder work to do. But that being said, those two streets are completed except for the shoulder work, and therefore I'm recommending payment of ASI in the amount of $78,591.38, which is already takes into account the 10% retainage from the amount that was billed.
I'd like to make a motion that we pay them for Alberton and Wanda as the amount presented.
Motion Duff, second Stack. I probably should let Dumont do that since he lives on Alberton.
I do. All right.
Nice job. So, quick question, the 10% is plenty to cover the shoulder work that still remains?
Oh, yes, quite a bit, and quite frankly, this is short of the shoulder work that was in the budget anyway. So it's a safeguard on what work has been done and to complete the work.
Just a quick question. Between Mike and yourself and what we've done on the Finance Committee, looking back over these 5-year plans that we're rolling forward on, we're pretty much on track then?
Right on track.
Right.
The only thing the only thing I haven't done, I haven't completed, if you recall, in order to make the budget not be changed a great deal over the years, I bumped the program out an additional year so that we can spread those costs out a little bit more, but we are absolutely right on track with what was proposed.
Micah, just a quick question. I heard something and I didn't. Oakview hasn't, shoulder work hasn't been done on Oakview yet.
It has not yet either.
Okay.
That is correct.
And real quick, on Laguna, they're doing a great job. These contractors doing a really nice job. I mean, they're going 10 miles an hour. The only ones kicking up dust are our neighbors. So, and I talked to Nathan about that today to see if he had any calls on that, and he hadn't, but I had a few people talk to me, and I saw them driving by a little too fast for those road conditions. So let them know that.
Today, they're probably out of dust and in mud.
Yeah, there's no dust today. The dust issue was solved today.
All right, any further discussion on that item? Roll call vote.
Seth?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Stack?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Does Council have any questions of me regarding this
So
project?
far, so good, Mike?
While we're on engineering items, though, do we have an update on when we expect to get the parking lot out here?
Oh, great question. It's been delayed just a little bit because of some weather issues. It is, as you see, it's been ground up. It probably might even be smoother than it was before, but it's been ground up. The next work needs to be done is the installation of the catch basins and the dry wells along the east side. As soon as those are put in, then the curbing gets put in along the entire length. ASI will be back in about the same time they do Woodlawn, and pave that, and then it'll be striped. So I'm looking at the next 2 weeks, our parking lot should be completed as well.
And Laguna?
Laguna, I've decided to drag Laguna out 3 or 4 months, but Laguna should be done here. It would have been done this week if we hadn't had the rain, and they're not calling for rain again tomorrow.
Third
So
done on the base coat right now.
They're about third done with the base coat, and but we'll get it done. Just They did ask if they couldn't pave on Saturday, if weather allows. I always hate to do that because people use that road so much in family and parties and things like that. But if council doesn't mind, they'd like to get back on track if they can and do it on Saturday as well. So it'll just take a little more traffic control.
Mike, when, and I know the weather's changing things, but when we have an idea of the day for the additional work here, let me know as soon as you can, just so I can coordinate where our folks will need to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Getting visitors in and out.
Right.
And if we could notify the people on Laguna what's going on, that would be helpful.
Okay, obviously, we did some handouts, but we certainly tell them, and I don't know, maybe we can put it on the website.
Maybe we could do an email.
Yeah, I think so
We
as
never
well.
got anything on the court.
I
Yeah,
never
okay.
got anything.
We have,
All right.
we have the notice on the front of the website right now for Laguna, and then today we added Woodlawn, and so we
Okay.
are putting more information up front than we used to.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll try to pass along any.
Yeah, if there's a way that we can say that there may be paving on Laguna this weekend,
Okay.
that would be
Yeah, I think
helpful
if
to
we
let
can
people know.
put it up and then send out an email blast, that should communicate it to enough people down there that the word will spread.
Right.
Okay. Good, thank you, council.
All right. Item K, set topics for the July 26th work session. I don't believe we have any topics.
I'd like to make a motion that we don't have a work session.
Support. Motion Duff, second Scott.
That's quick.
It's amazing how popular canceling those summertime work sessions is. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item L, the letter from Todd Lamb. And I wanted us to put this on the agenda since Mr. Sinkwitz wasn't here to begin, just since it does involve him, and I didn't want discussion to proceed on it without him present. And I think to sum up this CW3, I think Ed talked about it a little bit in the previous one. CW3, I think in all of that park discussion, got a bad rap. They're a good organization. They work with a lot of local kids. They're a good partner for communities. Emotions were high. Things were said. I think what Todd's looking for here is an apology from Ed for what he said about their organizational plans that are inaccurate. And I think, Ed, if you can just give an apology, that should move us along here.
Okay. Yeah, I agree that, you know, it was definitely a hostile environment. In fact, some of the people that were here for CW3 were walking out the door about halfway through because they saw what was happening. And my grandkids played in that, and it's a good organization. It was just, definitely gave everybody the feeling that it's on paper and it's happening, and there was a lot of upsetting. The only thing is that the first comment I made about this amount of money, this 14, it was not, my intention was, and I thought I made it clear when I made the statement, it was not that he cost us. I just said for all the planning that we've done, over, on, off, and on, we spend a lot of money to get things done where, like, and I applaud the group that's here from Oak Island, let's get a landscaper in there, let him do the legwork, and whoever gets the job makes the money. So we don't have going back and forth with somebody else. And as far as the one comment there about the that CW3 and Jaguars, there was going to be some type of involvement happening, that I told him, and we talked about it, I said that within a year, something was going to happen. And I said, I'll be here in a year, and if I'm wrong, I will apologize. And he said, if I'm wrong to you, I will apologize to you. But CW3 and the Jaguars, as far as I know, are somehow united, and I was concerned that if we had a field here and it was just CW3, that's a much smaller group. The Jaguars, they're travel, they play all the time. Buses come in, and that's the kind of thing that I was concerned about.
Right, so to be clear, you're unaware of any relationship between the Jaguars and CW3 other than their ongoing loose association that has been there all along, right?
Well, like I said, when I made the comment, if you recall, I said, he was behind me, and I said, I understand that there's something going on between the Jaguar Association and CW3, period. That's all I said. I didn't say that one was taking over the other. Then he, right away, obviously to defend himself, well, what do you have? I said, well, I just heard something. And he pressed me, and I said, I heard they were gonna combine. And that's when he said, absolutely not, that's not true. I said, well, we'll find out in a matter of time. But it wasn't like I said that one group was buying the other group or the other group was no good, but, you know, be it as it may.
Just out of, so we can get the clarification done, Ed, on page 8 of the council minutes, I think we need to clarify. He stated, and this is you, it is his understanding that CW3 is not going to be around much longer. He heard that somebody else is buying it. I think that's what upset the man.
Okay.
So maybe we ought to go back in and
I can't,
do a notification.
I don't have a problem. I'll make contact
Yeah.
with him and take care of that.
Doesn't the JAG, aren't they lacrosse as compared to soccer? Am I
No,
wrong?
they're soccer, but they're at the elite level.
Okay.
Where, from my experience in hockey and anybody else who's been in sports, I think that CW3 is more of a recreational league. The Jaguars, whatever their connection is with them, pull the cream of the crop out and they go to their travel program, okay? And that's how they function. And my understanding, and I'm not gonna say any more because it was just something that I heard from more than one or two people, and some of the people were in the audience that told me about it, that there might be a change made between who was running what. So be it as it may.
Okay, well, in all of that discussion, there was a lot of unfounded rumor mongering. And so I want to be sure that we as council are not stating things that we do not know factually to be true. It sounds as if Ed had information. Todd Lamb vehemently disagrees with that.
Well, I don't blame him.
And I think he's probably in the best position to know. And I just want to make it clear, one way or another, that council appreciates CW3 for coming forward. And Ed, did I hear correctly that you said you would address the issue directly with Todd?
I will I'll get his phone number.
Okay,
I'll take care of it.
I think
myself.
that should be able to move us forward.
But on the other hand, because of, it was, I felt sorry for CW3. I would love to see a letter from council to CW3, not apologizing, but telling them that we understand what an asset their program is to the community in their efforts to put soccer available to children. Just to let them know that we're not against it, because I'm sure that anybody that was sitting in there didn't think that I had much use for CW3, and that was not the case.
I'd be happy to have us put together a resolution of support for CW3.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can just entertain a motion from council to
So
have
moved.
the administrative committee put together a resolution of support for CW3, bring it back.
Well,
to
I
the next
imagine the administrator could do that too, unless you want to go through
Yeah.
the whole committee.
I agreed with
Yeah,
the administrator doing
you're
it, just
capable
sending
of
a
doing that,
letter.
aren't you, Nathan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are.
Okay,
How long is your list?
I will take the motion to have the administrator put together. a
That doesn't
resolution
have to
of
go out
support.
in tomorrow's mail.
Right.
And then we can bring it back.
In a
We can vote
timely
on it next
fashion.
month. I'm sorry, so I did hear the motion and a second, but I didn't hear who it was. Was it motion, Stack, and
Second
second?
was
No, I made the motion.
Oh, all
Motion,
right, I
motion
second.
Sinkowitz,
All
second
right.
Stack. Resolution of support. I really do want to make this clear, and it's not just for sake of CW3, who I think got a little burned in this process, but I want us to be available to be a good partner to organizations that want to come forward and work with us in any circumstances, so.
And the other thing that I talked to a person outside there that kind of was really surprised. I said, when this all started, and I was against it from the get-go, I said, I personally asked him, I said, what would be your feeling just to put one field in there so we don't have to rearrange our whole park, and the noise and the traffic and everything wouldn't be so bad, and we could do it. And he just turned out and looked at me, he was sitting right over there. He says, it's either 2 or nothing. And he got his wish.
And I understand organizationally from them that
Yeah.
why that is. There are ways in the way that that's laid out, moving the fields around. They need a large square, and I don't think we had the right spot for it. Okay, so we have that motion. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll have Nathan put together something, bring it back next month, and we'll be sure that we're right with CW3. Okay. Item M, sale of 1994 truck.
Yeah, thank you for adding this to the agenda. Andy brought this to my attention the other day. We actually bought a replacement truck for this vehicle last year, and we've hung on to this as a spare, and we're really not using it much at all. And we've had it since 1994, so we've gotten a lot of good use out of it. But we're hoping to get more than $1,500 in the sale, and so that's the magic number that requires council to authorize us to sell it. And I would ask you for the permission to sell this vehicle. If you grant that, we will put together the
At a
public.
minimum of 15 or at 15?
We will have to, we get the closed bids, is how it
Okay.
works, so.
It's just the
We want a
expectation
minimum.
we'll likely see. Motion Stack, second Duff, to proceed with the sale of the 1994 pickup truck. Further discussion. I want all potential bidders to know that this is a beautiful yellow truck.
Yes, well kept.
Driven, I believe, by little old ladies to church, a little bit of aggregate in the back.
We don't know how many, any
How many
particulars,
miles?
how many miles on it.
I have it upstairs, I'll get it to you.
I mean, like in the 100,000 or no?
I don't think it's that high, but it's had a lot of use,
Okay.
hard use. But we'll put a full ad together that we'll promote on the website and through some different.
Went to a few church picnics.
Yeah.
I'll make sure everyone has the details.
I think they put the tailgate down for football games, and that was the only time ever.
Not much use.
Garage kept.
Yeah.
Garage kept.
Garage kept.
One owner since new. All right, we have motion, we have second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion, actually, do I need a roll call for that one? No, we only need it when we
It's
approve the
authorized.
sale, yeah. We're good. Okay, that brings us to the end of items in 12. Pending business, we have none tonight. Update from Chief Ellsworth.
Well,
Showing your mastery of
Yeah,
bonds.
see, that's how it works, just so we're clear. Thank you for your support with the new hires. It's going to really help out. It may not be an immediate relief, but it's going to definitely help out down the line. Obviously, this is my report for June, but I wanted to give you a quick update. It was an extremely busy month. Again, we had 275 calls, which is quite above normal. I think we looked through last year we averaged about 165 calls a month, and 275 was quite a bit. Also, if you, as you know, it was an excellent tiki night. The weather cooperated. It was interesting because we had probably just as many people, but it was spread out. There weren't so many large parties, but there were many more parties. And we directed traffic, when I say we, the officers, I want to give credit where credit is due, they directed traffic until 12:30 at Glengarry and South Commerce, which is almost unheard of. An hour and a half out there. It was very, very busy out there. Special thanks to Oakland County Sheriff's Department, especially Sergeant Lloyd Lacey, who directed, I think they had an additional 6 guys out there with us. And of course, my Deputy Chief, John Wachowski, for running such a smooth event. It really went well. I got to go home so I could come back early the next morning and pick up the pieces. But actually, it was a really good evening. I'll give you more of an update the next month. I did want to mention that Officer A.J. Susko performed his first life-saving Narcan use this week, or this past week, on a resident, a 67-year-old resident, believe it or not. More information on that will come in the future. He just finished up the report actually today. I believe it was last Thursday. mid-evening. I happened to be in here finishing up some stuff, and he came in, and he was very thrilled and very thankful that we were able to get all that stuff. So I passed that information along. But it's sad, but it's also good to know that my guys have the tools. You guys were able to provide us, and they used them. I will be posting a notification for a promotion for a sergeant's position probably Friday. And then it'll give them 90 days to prepare before the exam is given. And then that's just kind of starting my plan. I want to have a sergeant in place by January 1st, and it is a process, so we have to take it one step at a time. And this is the first notification, and I do have to give them a certain amount of time to study, et cetera, before we throw them into the fire. So I think that's pretty much it. I'll be contacting the TIA, the Traffic Safety Association, Traffic Information Association, for a traffic study for Penny Lake. So that, and I will be on vacation next week. So that's it. Thank you.
All right.
Job well done.
Update from Treasurer Condit.
All clear here, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Update from the Administrator.
Just want to follow up on the chief's comments. I got to spend some time on Tiki Night with the chief and some of our other officers, and did a phenomenal job, and very much appreciate that. Wanted to give you an update on our bigger and better perimeter street signs. We're expecting those to arrive next week, and we will be getting those up as time permits. But we got some really good feedback on the last draft, so I think we're excited about that. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, meeting before last, we talked about our trash contract moving over to GFI from Republic. We received word very late this afternoon that the transition date for that is going to be Tuesday, August 1st. So we have some materials that they've prepared for us that we'll be sharing with our residents the next few weeks. And nothing else is changing for the residents. It'll just be a different truck driving down the street. But we'll be talking about that more the next few weeks. But I did want to let you know the date that will be effective.
Seen a lot of GFL trucks around
Yeah,
lately.
really.
They are, they're all over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are two-man operations too, right? The trucks, as
yeah.
compared to a single guy.
So, yeah. And
That's got to be a long
initially
day.
it was going to be
Long time.
June. They've been working out some things with each other, and officially now it's
They
going to be
don't
August
care,
1st.
too.
All right. Council comments. Start down here. This.
All right. Well, then you have to go to GFI and ask for the Republic donation of $1,000 for Taste of the Lakes.
They
'cause
have
we're
to do
switching.
whatever Republic did. That's part of the deal.
Yeah, all right. And Tiki Night, great success. Laguna, it was probably the best traffic we had on there, and I can't remember how long. Getting out, you said they were at that corner till 12:30, but my guests were out of there. The people were stopping, letting people actually in because of the police presence on the street. They didn't want to get caught as the jerk who isn't letting anyone in. And also, thank you to the residents for taking that moment of silence for Chris Miller that passed away. That was really nice at the end of the fireworks. I mean, as soon as the fireworks were done, everyone didn't fire up their boat and boogie out of there. They stayed there for a minute, let that firework go off. So I think that was great, and I think that that's something we need to do every Tiki Night in remembrance of the people in the village that we have lost. I think that that would be a great honor to them and their families.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So, and other than that, that's it.
Ditto with, just an addition of fight the bite, use your cutters.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you guys for a good job, 3rd of July and into the 4th. It was a great event.
I echo the same thing. We actually saw each other walking down Laguna. Yeah. And I'd like to thank you too, Chief, for the comparison, crime stat comparison that you did. That was interesting. And
I found the results interesting myself.
yeah. You do that quarterly or something?
I
Just to
could
give
do
us a-
something like that. I would like to find something that was a little bit more comparable, but I
Yeah.
guess Gold Lake will work for now. But,
Yeah, well, just something that they're in a neighboring
Sure.
city, so that was good. I guess a fishing contest, I talked to Phil, and I'll be weighing fish, and we're looking for more help. So anybody that wants to step forward and
What's the date?
volunteer.
the date.
29th, I believe. I don't have.
August.
August,
I think
yes,
it's,
it's August.
I think it's 26.
26.
It's on the front of the website, but I'll let you
Yeah.
know. I think it's the 26th.
Have to look at it.
Usually that.
Yeah, it's
or
a Saturday, the
Yeah,
26th.
Saturday. the
He's got it right here, it is
Yeah.
26.
26, he's got it right there. And I think they're also looking for volunteers for the corn roast. I guess that's more in your purview, but I understand they're looking for a little bit more help. Again, Phil, so, you know.
Sure.
He's a chair of everything, I've come to learn, huh?
Nedrow.
Great tiki night, and had a somewhat successful goose roundup last month.
Yeah.
Got 50 plus, and there's
Thank you.
4 boats. Gene and grandkids were out, and I was out, and a couple other boats, and Monique on a kayak, so it was fun. Almost got them all.
Well, the lake is full of water again, so we have to be careful out there, and kudos to the police department, not only for traffic, but the guy had his hands full for 3 days out on the lake with the boat traffic, and, you know, can we get 20 more boats into the deep hole, you know, well, they'd get 40 in, but he stayed busy, and it's a thankless job, because I'm sure there's times when you gotta tell people, well, why am I moving and not him? But they kept everything pretty safe, and thank God there was no incidents out there, so keep it up.
Couple items. I do want to thank everybody who participated in the Goose Roundup, and especially gooseologist emeritus Gene Mikowski, who made sure that it happened this year. We need to make sure we're on top of it. That goose program is one that it's easy to take for granted, and in any particular year, it doesn't seem like it does that much, because we pick up a half dozen nests and we pick up 40 or 50 geese, and it's not that big. But doing that on a regular basis keeps the numbers reasonable throughout the year, and it really does make a big difference. I want to send greetings out to my mother-in-law, Bridget Darnay, who, as some of you may know, and the few folks have asked, she had a fall recently, had some leg surgery. She's getting over it well. She's recovering well. She's in good spirits, and we expect her home soon and up and walking around a little bit after that. But she's actually already up in her rehab, getting up and walking around some distances. So thanks to the emergency responders who helped there, and we look forward to having her back. And last item I wanted to mention was also on Chris Miller. I attended earlier today, as did a couple other folks, and a lot of members of our community, a memorial service for her. A lot of folks knew her. Really, really well liked, very popular member of the community. Far too young to have passed. And during that service, the minister said something that resonated with me, which is, treasure the people that you have while you're alive. Tell them that you treasure them then. So I want to leave everybody with that thought, and make sure that your loved ones know that they are your loved ones. And with that, I would
Motion to
entertain
adjourn.
support. Motion to adjourn. Motion Sikowitz, second Nedrow. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.